Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm glad that you joined me here on this edition of Movie Goodness. I truly appreciate you dearly. Today's episode, we're going to talk love. We're going to talk tragedy. We're going to celebrate an anniversary, all wrapped up in one. Uh, Today, at least the time of the release of this episode in theaters, you can go check out Titanic, the 1997 film from James Cameron. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Uh, yes, the film is 25 years old. So I'm not losing my mind. You're not hearing me wrong. They're re-releasing it for its 25th anniversary. And this is arguably one of the best love stories that has ever hit the silver screen. And, it's hard to argue that point. I personally have seen better love stories, but it is a real good love story. But it's set, as the title indicates, on the maiden voyage of the Titanic. And in the event that you've been living under a rock for your entire life, we all know what happened on that ill-fated night, April the 15th, 1912. We've all heard the stories. Pretty sure that the majority of you have seen this movie. But we're going to go over the history of this ship, what it was supposed to signify, and what happened at the end of that voyage. Or it wasn't even the end of the voyage. It it was the middle of the voyage of that ship. And of course, we're going to review the 1997 film Titanic. And this is all in dedication of Valentine's Day. In case you was wondering why we're talking about that today. Valentine's Day is coming up in a couple of days, and this is a love story. At least the movie is. Not what happened on to the ship, but the love story that takes place in the film. So we're gonna go over that. But let's start off talking about the actual Titanic, the British passenger liner that sunk on April the 15th, 1912. This ship was supposed to change the world. This was the biggest or the largest ship, at least at the time, to ever be put at sea. Um, just think of a cruise liner. It was those Caribbean cruise ships or Carnival cruise ships. Just think about that. But at the time of this ship's maiden voyage, it was unheard of. See, we see ships all the time floating down the rivers if you're close to a river or on TV or whatever. But this was like out of the realm of possibility for a ship this large to be put at sea. And it was dubbed unsinkable, believe it or not. And wouldn't you know, first time hitting the water, it sunk tragically. Um, After striking an iceberg during his maiden voyage from Southampton, England, to New York City, it it just I don't know. It's like midway. I don't know how you missed that big old iceberg that was just floating in the water. I'm just going by what the movie, visualizing that in open sea. How you miss this giant iceberg, but whatever, it happened. Of the estimated 2,224 passengers and crew aboard, more than 1,500 died, making it the deadliest sinking of a single ship at that particular time in 1912. It remains the deadliest peacetime sinking of an ocean liner or a cruise ship. The disaster drew public attention, providing fundamental material for the disaster film genre um, that has inspired many artistic works. You remember the Poseidon Adventure? You remember that with Gene Hackman? I think uh Shelley Walters was in that. Um, I'm trying to remember who was all in that film. But the Poseidon Adventure got off. Now I'm not talking about that god awful remake they made about 10, 15 years ago. Uh, just Poseidon. That with Kurt Russell, I think Josh Lucas. Who else was in that movie? Richard Dreyfuss was in that movie. It was bad. I enjoyed it at the time. When it first came out, I was like, man, this is fire, man. With special effects the way they are now, you know, compared to the original, the Poseidon Adventure. Yeah, the special effects it was popping. But I watched it recently. I want to say last year sometime. And that movie was hard. That movie was not that good. It really wasn't. It's aside from the special effects, and that's it. And Russell's performance. I love Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell could do no wrong in my eyes. He was the shining light in that film. But yeah, all that was inspired by this actual real life tragedy that took place on this ship. And, like the towering inferno and stuff like that. It just it drew inspiration from a real life incident. Titanic was the largest ship afloat at the time she entered service, and the second of three Olympic class ocean liners operated by the White Star Line. She was built by the Harland and Wolff Shipyard in Belfast. Thomas Andrews, the chief naval architect of the ship line, died in the disaster. In the film, uh, who plays him? I forgot who plays him in the film, but yeah, he stays on the ship. The Titanic was under the command of Captain Edward Smith, who went down with the ship as well. Now, the Titanic was kind of a blueprint of what the world was. It was a weird type of ship because it wasn't just one class of people. The ocean liner carried some of the wealthiest people in the world and hundreds of immigrants from Great Britain and Ireland and Scandinavia and elsewhere throughout Europe who were seeking a new life in the United States and Canada. The first class accommodations were designed to be the pinnacle of comfort and luxury, with a gymnasium, a swimming pool, libraries, high class restaurants, and cabins. Uh, the most powered radio telegraph transmitter was available for sending passengers uh, monograms and for the ship's operation use. This was state of the art at the time. This was like George George Jetson type stuff to see at that particular time. Um, the Titanic had advanced safety features such as watertight compartments and remotely activated watertight doors. This is what gave the Titanic the nickname or the reputation of unsinkable, ironically. Uh, Titanic was equipped with 16 lifeboats, Davids, that each of them were capable of lowering 3 lifeboats from a total of 48 boats. The Davids are like these little crane things that lower the lifeboats into the water. It had 16 of them and it had a grand total of 48 boats. She carried only 20 lifeboats, 4 of which were capsized and proven hard to launch when the ship started to sink. Now, together, the 20 lifeboats could hold 1,178 people, about half the number of the passengers on board, and a third of the number of passengers the ship could have carried at full capacity. Um, while the ship sank, many of the lifeboats that had been lowered were only about half full, and this is depicted in the film as well. Uh, yeah, because a lot of people didn't want, they only wanted certain people on the boat with them, or especially when it came to the lower class, the immigrants that were in the bowels of the ship, they did not want them mixed with the upper class people. The more things change, the more they stay the same, huh? It is 2023, and it's still like that. The Titanic's passenger numbered approximately 1,300 people. Uh, they were breaking it down by class. There were 324 in first class, 284 in second class, and 709 in third class. Of these, 66% were male. There were 107 children aboard the Titanic, the largest number of whom were in third class. Now, the ship was under capacity. Well, like I said before, the number, it could hold approximately 2,500 passengers. But on this voyage, it was only 1,300 people, a little over 1,300 people. Usually, a high privileged vessel like the Titanic could expect to be fully booked on his maiden voyage. However, a national coal strike in the UK had caused considerable disruption to shipping schedules in the spring of 1912, causing many crossings to be canceled. Many would be passengers chose to postpone their travel plans until the strike was over. Crazy enough, the strike had finished a few days before the Titanic set sail. However, it was too late for much of it to affect, the passenger list. So it was kind of like the 11th hour. So they decided, yeah, we'll wait for the next one. God bless those people. God had a calling on those folks. Yeah, I'll wait for the next one. Titanic was able to sail on schedule only because coal was transferred from other vessels which were tied to the Southampton, such as the SS City of New York and the Oceanic. The owner of the Titanic, J.P. Morgan, the name sounds familiar, I know. J.P. Morgan was scheduled to travel on that maiden voyage, but he canceled at the last minute. He was going to get up, but he I guess plans, something came up. Once again, God got to call it for him as well. Of course, I mean, who does? J.P. Morgan is everywhere. So if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have J.P. Morgan. So look how that worked out. Now, the exact number of people on board is still unknown. Uh, as not all of those who had booked tickets made it to the ship. About 50 people canceled for various reasons, and not all of those who booked stayed aboard the entire journey. They had stops elsewhere too. Um, Fares varied depending on the class and the season. Third class fare from London, from Southampton and Queenstown cost the equivalent of £800 today. That'll be $964 American. And the second class, uh, the cheapest, I'm sorry, not second, first class. The cheapest first class ticket for the Titanic was £2,400. That's $2,892 American. And the most expensive first class suite, it was the equivalent today, £92,000 in US dollars. That ticket would cost $110,864. I'll walk. I will swim. There's no way I'm paying. My God, my house doesn't cost that much, and I'm gonna go in. buy a ticket on a ship. Nah, I'm good, bro. I'm good. I don't care how luxurious it is. Yeah, I'll take a hard pass. I'll just swim, or I'll get a paddle boat. One of the two. There's no way I'm paying that much for a ticket. Not even not even the third class. That's rounded up $1,000. Well, I might can deal with that. I might can deal with $1,000, but my God, but no, I couldn't because you have to understand the third class is at the bottom. You're at the bottom of the ship, and they wouldn't allow you to go up to the top and all that there. So nah, yeah, that's a hard pass for Kevin Reed. The survivors are broken down like this. I'm gonna break it down by women, children, and men. Uh, well, let's start with the children. The children are first class. There were six total. The numbers saved were five. One child died. In second class, they had 24 children. 24 were saved. In third class, there were 79 children. 27 were saved. 52 children died on the Titanic. The women in first class, there were 144 women. 140 were saved. Four women died on the Titanic. First class rather. Second class, there were 93 women in second class. 80 of them were saved. 13 women in second class passed away. Third class, there were 165 women in third class. Only 76 were saved. 89 women who were in third class died. Of the crew, there were 23 women a part of the crew. 20 were saved. 3 crew women passed away. Men, first class men, there were 175 men in first class. 57 survived. 118 men in first class died. In second class, 168 men, 14 survived. 154 men in second class died. Third class, there were 462. 75 were saved. 387 men who were traveling in third class drowned on the Titanic. Of the crew, there were 885 men in the crew. 192 were saved. 693 crewmen died on the Titanic. That's a grand total of 1,514 total deaths of the Titanic. And that's the numbers that they know of. Like I said before, they don't have an actual number or a count of how many people were actually on the Titanic. Maybe there were some stowaways and all this. Who knows? But that's what they were able to formulate from this tragedy. But yeah, this was a man, I don't know, bruh. I've been on a cruise, and thinking about all that. Of course, I've never been in the Arctic area, so I don't have to worry about a iceberg per se. But man, that is crazy to me. The night or the days following, when they went to rescue those who survived, they actually have a photograph of the actual iceberg that the Titanic hit, and they're, since it's an old photo, I mean, what, it's well over 100 years old, so it is in black and white. But witnesses stated that you could see the red paint, like a red paint, like when you bump your car up against something, you get that smudge or whatever color is you hit is on your car or on the thing that you hit. That they saw a smidge of red paint on that actual iceberg. So it hit it. I mean, it nailed it. of course, it bent the metal. They didn't just tap that thing, so it was almost hit it dead on. That that's mind boggling. I don't know how it came to that. Who was asleep at the wheel? I wonder if that's where that saying originated from. Somebody was asleep at the wheel, because man, how you did not miss that iceberg. Oh, my God. But something that's simple, you know, with all this technology, because at the time, the Titanic was the most technically advanced ship to hit the water. It was like the equivalent of being on a spaceship around that time. It had all these safety features and radio transmitting devices and all this here. Man, how you didn't see that iceberg? It's crazy. It's crazy. 1,500 people lost their lives because somebody was asleep at the wheel. It's sad. It's really sad. It is really depicted in that film. While we Let's just jump into the film. Um, this was a film that I was super excited about. Being a huge James Cameron fan. You know, Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss, True Lies, all these movies. I just love James Cameron. James Cameron, uh, if everybody been listening and you heard my James Cameron episode, I mean, James Cameron knocks every film out the park. His most recent film, Avatar: The Way of Water, has made $2 billion, beating its predecessor, the first Avatar, it's which made over $1 billion. All his films make billions of billions, people, billions. Uh, and Titanic is no different. Titanic is the first film in history to ever cross over $2 billion. That is amazing. Um, and I believe that Avatar: The Way of Water is about to beat it, or it has beaten it. I'm not 100% sure. It really doesn't matter at this point. It's safe to say it's successful. But yes, Titanic in 1997. I went to go see this film 3 times in the theater. 3 times. And this movie is close to 3 hours long. And I was not a fan of long movies. I'm still not really. I'm not a big fan of long 3 hour movies. As I've gotten older, I can tolerate it more. I can sit more. Actually, what got me to really sit down and soak up a 3 hour film is the Lord of the Ring films, because all three of those films are 3 hours plus, and so I got accustomed to it. Now I can sit through it. I'm real antsy, real fidgety, so I gotta move. I can't sit down too long, too long, or I'm gonna go crazy. But for some strange reason, I didn't get that way with Titanic. I absolutely enjoyed this film from beginning to end. And it is one of the most romantic films of all time. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Billy Zane, uh, Kathy Bates. We have Francis Fisher, Gloria Stewart, Bernard Hill, Jonathan Hyde, Victor Goldberg. That's who plays the builder of the ship, and of course the late great Bill Paxton, who is a favorite of James Cameron. He's in most of his films, and I really miss Bill Paxton, man. Bill Paxton is one of my faves. But the inspiration for this film, or why James Cameron wanted to make this film, came with his fascination of shipwrecks. He felt a love story intercepting with the human loss would add to the impact of the disaster. So, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio's and Kate Winslet's characters are made up for the film. This is they're not actual people who were on the ship, but he intersected this love story between Jack and Rose. Uh, so you can have somebody to connect to and have this love story you can connect to, and it worked. It worked seamlessly. When you do things like that, if you're gonna mess with historical events, something that is well known in pop culture zeitgeist, you 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 normally don't add nothing nor take anything away. At least you're not supposed to. But this was a brilliant way to do it. This is a young Leonardo DiCaprio at this point. This is before we get Leonardo DiCaprio in The Departed and The Revenant and Wolf of Wall Street and all this here. This is young Leonardo DiCaprio. This is right after Romeo and Juliet, I believe. And he is, you tell in this film that eventually he was going to get this Academy Award that he eventually won just a few years ago. And because he had that he had that movie star presence. He can act, he can do physical work. Because James Cameron, he comes from this action background with Terminator and all this here. So it's going to have some type of physicality to this film, and the actors had to really bring it physically, and he did. And he really did. And Kate Winslet, who never heard of until this movie, and fell in love with her after this movie. I have a huge crush on Kate Winslet because of this film, and it's still here. It's still here. I love Kate Winslet, and I'm not saying anything late breaking. My wife knows this, but so I just have a huge crush on her, and I loved her in this film. I loved her portrayal of Rose. As this, she's not of wealth. She has wealth to a degree, but she's not. She's down. She's the girl next door. She just wants to hang out with Jack. She doesn't want to be around these bougie, upper class people that she's around in first class. She wants to hang out in the bowels of the ship with Jack. And for 3 hours, we got to experience their progression. We got to witness them fall in love. And it was flushed out perfectly. And that's why you get, at least I do, get frustrated with a lot of films where the movie starts, the protagonist meets his love interest, and it's love at first sight. I believe in love at first sight, don't get me wrong. But sometimes you look at it and you be like, man, that's bull jive. That is not, they are not in love. They don't have any chemistry. It's nothing there. And you don't believe it. So you have to sit there for 2 hours and pretend that you are going along with this foolishness. I really love movies and television shows that are willing to take their time and flush out characters, flush out storylines, flush out a love story. And this film did it ever so perfectly. At no point throughout the film do you think about the ship crashing. You could sit there, just like I did in 1997. When I bought my ticket, I knew the ship was going to sink at the end of this movie. Just like everybody else knew. We knew that ultimately it was going to be tragedy at the end of this film. But James Cameron and Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio did such a marvelous job of sucking you into this love story. You could care less. I actually sat there the first time I watched it, and a couple of times since then when I watched it again, because I've seen this movie. Maybe it's the 25-year anniversary. It's been about 25 times I've seen this movie, if not more. I own it, so go with that on DVD. And they don't even Can't even find DVDs no more. But anywho's, I forgot the first time. I remember the first time I watched it. I sat in the theater and I forgot that they're all gonna die. I forgot that this ship was about to meet its bitter end because you were so entrenched in this story. Not only between Jack and Rose, but you had the other issue that you that Billy Zane character, who was, I can't think of his name or his character, but he was uh, uh, the fiance of Kate Winslet, of Rose, and it was like and he was such a snobbery, arrogant idiot. I couldn't stand Billy Zane in this movie. And let me just say this quick point of order. I love Billy Zane. One of the biggest regrets, because I can't think of another word right now, but one of the biggest regrets I have in life is the fact that Billy Zane did not get the love he rightfully deserved. This dude is an outstanding actor. Now, don't get me wrong. He's been in some cheesy movies. The less said about the less said about the Phantom, the better. But he has been in some gems. One of my favorite movies he was in was Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. If you ever seen that, it's him. It's oh my god, Jada Pickett is in there. Oh my god, I can't think of the other actor's name. But he Billy Zane played the demon. My god. He was the I've never seen a performance like that. And I'm not being facetious. I'm being serious. I love that movie because of Billy Zane. Anywho's, he plays this snobbing, arrogant fool perfectly. So you have that dynamic of the film, this love triangle, so to speak, and you also have the upper class versus the lower class little dynamic storyline that's taking place on this ship. As I was saying when I was talking about the actual Titanic, how it was broken up in classes and how it's basically how the world is. How the world is broken up into classes. Unfortunately, now we don't have a middle class. There is no second class. There's either first or third. There is no middle class anymore. But that's how this ship was broken up, and that's uh subtly was played throughout this film. Um, the older actress, Gloria Stewart, who just recently passed away, I believe. I want to say, oh my God, because I had not too long seen it. It was doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is, she played the older Rose. She played the 100-year-old Rose, who is helping this diving crew because I jumped right into this film and I ain't even tell you like the real plot of it because I figured you knew the plot. But there was a little subplot in this film. It was these divers are you know surveying the wreckage of the Titanic, and the reason they're surveying it, they're looking for this diamond, this little Hope ruby or whatever it was, and they found a photo, an old photo that was not a photo, it was a drawing of this woman, and they were like, well, maybe this woman was on the ship. So they hold a news conference, and it's like, do you know who this woman is? Because the photo in the drawing, she's wearing that necklace. So like, if you've seen this woman or whatever, so she sees it on television, on the news, and she calls up, and Bill is played by Bill Paxton, the diver, and he's like, Yeah, do you know this one? You know who this woman was? And she's like, yeah, it's me. That's me. That's me. And so she goes and flies. They fly her out, to meet, and so they can find out where this diamond was, or the ruby, whatever it is, this jewel. And they ask her about it. So at that point, she proceeds to tell the whole story, and that's how we jump off into this film. Very unique way to tell this story, as she's the narrator of this film. And I'm like, okay, and this is coming from somebody who actually doesn't exist, you know. But it's funny how that worked. Just everything worked. The character of Jack, it's funny. Leonardo DiCaprio, he got the role, but so many actors were vying for this role, and I mean top tier actors. Um, River Phoenix, who passed away, he died in I think I want to say 92, 93, somewhere up in there. He initially that's who James Cameron wanted, but he had passed away. Uh, Other established actors who were close to getting the role of Jack Dawson was Matthew McConaughey, Chris O'Donnell, Billy Cullup, and Stephen Dorff was considered. But the biggest name, well, before I get to the biggest name that almost got it, uh, Jared Leto was considered. Uh, actually, he he was considered, but he refused. He turned it down. He turned down the audition. Um, oh my God, it was somebody else. But anyways, the big name, who almost got the role, but his price was too high. His accent price was too high. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise almost starred in Titanic. I love me some Tom Cruise. I didn't see Tom Cruise as as Jack. I couldn't picture it because Tom Cruise would have got on that little boat. I'm on that little door at the end. he would he probably would have kicked Kate Winslet off the door. But I just couldn't. I can't picture him as Jack. You know, granted, it's been 25 years. The role of Jack is embedded in my head with Leonardo DiCaprio's face. So, if had it been Tom Cruise, we would have had to accept it. It wasn't like it was like, oh no, I'm not going to see that. Yeah, you would have went to see it. It still would have made $2 billion. Uh, Kate Winslet was another one. She wasn't the just the hands down choice, even though it ended up being the perfect choice. Gwyneth Paltrow was considered. Winona Ryder was considered. Claire Danes was considered, which would have been interesting, being as though Clara Danes, and Leonardo DiCaprio had just starred together in Romeo and Juliet. Uh, and Reese Witherspoon. Reese Witherspoon was considered for the role of Rose, but they went with Kate Winslet, which, like I said, perfect. That's that God, I love that woman. Anyways, anyways, everything just fit. Everything fit. The role of Molly Brown. Molly Brown is a famous. She is famous. Uh, for being actually she has a nickname, the unsinkable Mary Brown. She was Molly Brown rather. She was an actual person who was on the ship, and she actually survived it. The reason she got the nickname Unsinkable because she was on another ship a couple of years later and it sunk. And yes, she survived that as well. And so she had became so popular that in 1960 they had a Broadway musical based on her life. And in 1964 they adapted that musical into a film called The Unsinkable Molly Brown. And so she was I guess you could say the most famous person to come out of that tragedy. Um this When we get to the actual sinking of the Titanic, In 1997, we had never seen visual effects really just make your mouth literally drop open. Other than Jurassic Park, which came out what about 3 4 years prior. Yeah, we saw dinosaurs moving around. That's all fine and good. But for something like this, for an actual ship, and you really believe that James Cameron took a ship and sunk it. It looked still holds up today. It still holds up today. How well that looked, and he wanted everything authentic. Before the sinking, even the plates, like the plates they had when they were eating dinner, was the same plates that they actually had on the Titanic. Not the actual plates, of course, but he had the people or the company that made the plates for the Titanic that's still around and open make similar plates, make the replica plates for the film. The furniture, the chairs, everything, because he made a ridiculous number of dives to actually look at the Titanic as in its final resting place at the bottom of the ocean, and had cameras to go inside of the ship and get an actual look inside the ship and see how it is, because it's pretty well preserved, being as though it's underwater, and I guess with the pressure and all this. Look, I'm not a scientist, but anywho's took pictures and all that other stuff. So he wanted everything to be authentic, and it was. Even that ship sinking, going by eyewitness accounts, and uh, how the ship landed, or how it actually, settled at the bottom of the ocean. I didn't know at that time. I thought the ship just sunk. You know what I'm saying? I thought once it hit it, the water came in and it sunk. But it was so long. It took so long for that water to build up. And part of the reason is because of those air pockets that I was talking about with the design of the ship. Those special compartments that were sealed and you couldn't get through, water couldn't get through. Well, all those were sealed and it was like air pockets. So it was taking on water, but it was still kind of like bobbing, in the water. But eventually water won. Like it always is water. The water won. And to the point to where it, like, the front of the ship just sunk and the back of the ship rose all the way up, and everybody's fighting to get to the back half of the ship. And as all the weight of the people who are still on the ship are on that, top of that bottom half, the actual ship breaks in half. And it broke in half, and all these people, you see the people falling, and oh my God, the visual of all that was amazing. I'm like, oh my God, how did he pull this off? How did it, I mean, James Cameron is a madman, and he is insane, and you have to be insane in order to pull off something this crazy. And the water taken in on the broken half of the ship and how it sunk after that. And we all know the, the biggest conspiracy theory known to man. Rose is on top of I guess it's a door or a table, whatever it is. She's completely out of water on top of this, whatever, a door or a table. I've heard it being called a door, and I've heard it being called a table. I don't know what it is. Anyways, she's out of the water on top of it. Jack is hanging on the side of it, still in the water. You have to remember, people, keep in mind, there's an iceberg that hit the ship, which means you're in a freezing water. They weren't in the tropics. This was freezing water. So everybody has this theory that Jack could have got on the door. Let's call it the door. He could have got on the door with Rose. You remember that show Mythbusters that used to come on? I don't know what was it, TLC or something. And they actually debunked that theory because it didn't work, or did it work? I don't remember because I never watched MythBusters like that. But I remember that. I remember people talking about that episode, and I did go on YouTube and look it up. And if memory serves me correct, two people couldn't fit on the door. But even if they could have, I think Jack still would have died. He still would have died because he didn't have a life jacket. He didn't have anything to warm him up or nothing like that to that nature. So he still would have died. But it was such a tragic. It was tragic love story because man. I'm thinking about it now. It's breaking my heart. I really love Titanic. I do. I never Titanic never gets old. I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't get old. It's one of the best films from James Cameron, and that's saying a lot because all of his films are excellent. Oh, and before I get my grade, I got to say this. This film has the most unexpected. Is it a cameo or is it a supporting role? I don't even know how to describe it. But Victor Newman is in this movie. Victor Newman. If you don't know who Victor Newman is, my God, you never watched The Young and the Restless. I don't get who doesn't know who Victor Newman is, but he is in this movie. And when I saw that, I, wait, that's Victor Newman. It is still to this day, it still blows my mind because I've never seen him in anything else other than Young and the Restless. Never. And he popped up in this. Mind-boggling. But this film went on to just crush the box office. As I said, it has grossed $2.1 million, $2.1 billion, and who knows after this weekend with the re-release, it's probably make another, let's say 10 million. So it's going to add to that as well. At the Academy Awards, it went bananas. It went crazy with the awards. Titanic received 14 Academy Award nominations. 14. It was nominated for Best Visual Effects, which it won. It won for Best Sound Effects Editing, Best Sound, Best Original Song, My Heart Will Go On, Best Original Dramatic Score for James Horner. It was nominated for Best Makeup, but lost. It won Best Film Editing, Best Costume Design, Best Cinematography, Best Art Design. It was nominated for Best Supporting Actress and Best Actress. What makes that so significant? They're playing the same character. Kate Winslet was nominated for Best Actress for playing Rose, and Gloria Stewart was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for playing Rose. And that was that was so cool to me. I like, man, that'll be crazy if they won for playing the same character. But they both lost, unfortunately. But it got back on his winning ways. It won Best Director for James Cameron, and of the big one of them all, Best Picture for Titanic. The film went on, as I said, to be the most expensive movie ever produced, yet the most profitable movie ever produced. This movie was a juggernaut. Titanic from 1997 gets a letter grade of an A. It is a almost perfect movie. It's an almost perfect movie. I think the end dragged. The end kind of dragged it. Crazy enough at a 3-hour movie, but the end, it is like it almost didn't know how to end, even though it ended beautifully. Don't get me wrong, but at that point, I was emotionally spent. So whatever took place after the actual sinking of the Titanic was like whatever, because I was done after that. So that's why it gets an A. and not a A plus. But I'm just nitpicking at this point. It is a gorgeously made film, and you may question, well, what's so special about the 25th anniversary that they're re-releasing? Well, this version is remastered in 4K, so it's gonna look better. It's gonna sound better. I am strongly debating on going to see this in the theater. I think they're gonna release it in IMAX as well. So I'm strongly debating to go and see it this upcoming weekend. And so it's worth a look. Yeah, man, Titanic, a classic and a tragedy at the same time, and a beautiful love story, which is the perfect segue into a question I have. It's Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is this upcoming Tuesday. And what's so special about Valentine? Who created Valentine's Day and why was it created? This is a question that needs to be answered. The reason I ask, now I know not everybody does this, but the vast majority, Valentine's Day is mainly for the females. Am I right or am I wrong? Because it's always, the get your significant other flowers, candy, you know, take them out to dinner and all this here. But what does the man get? Does the man get anything? I'm asking for a friend because I want to know why everything is geared towards the females in this side of the equation. I don't. I mean, I like some flowers. I like some. Well, I don't eat chocolate, so you can keep the chocolate. You give me some jelly beans or something. I mean, I like some candy. I want to be treated to dinner. Now, I'm joking because my wife, God bless her, love her to death. She does make me feel special on Valentine's Day. But to be completely honest, and I'm gonna make a lot of people mad here, she makes me feel special every day. It's not just Valentine's Day, but she turns it up a notch. Now, I haven't been the greatest when it came to Valentine's Day. I can honestly say that. Sometimes, well, see, my wife isn't a big flowers person, so I don't really buy flowers. I used to buy a lot of flowers, but I think they got stale, so I had to kind of kind of step up the game. But I don't know. I mean, what do you give the woman as me? I mean, you already have me. That's the greatest gift you can get. You can get. But yeah, I haven't been a winner every year that we've been together, and we've been together for, ironically enough, 25 years. So we have this movie is celebrating 25 years. So are we. We've been married 23 come June. But yeah, man, I haven't been the greatest. I can honestly say that. But when I was great, I was great. And this year too, I'm gonna make it special, and I want everybody to make it special. Make it special for your significant other. Do something different. Don't just do the lame traditional thing of rose petals it's on the bed, and the box of candy, and go out to eat. That's been done to death. You got to spice it up every now and then. Do something different. Do something different. Try something new. I don't know. If y'all never go to the movies a lot, go to the movies. Go see Titanic. If you normally don't go out to eat to a fancy restaurant, go to a fancy restaurant. Stop going to Arby's. Go somewhere special. To make this special. I know it's a manufactured holiday because I don't even. Well, do we call this a holiday? I don't get Valentine. I really don't get it. But it's the thing. Because if you don't show love on Valentine's Day, it's a problem. Even though we're supposed to show love every single day. Speaking of which, let me get up out of here before I say something to get me in trouble. Everybody, you can contact the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. Also, look us up on Twitter at KB Radio Network, and on other social media platforms. Just look up the KB Radio Network. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you're currently listening to this show. Don't forget about the 5 stars, reviews, and sharing this show with all your loved ones this Valentine's Day. And don't forget that we are on YouTube. Swing over on YouTube and give the KB Radio Network a subscribe. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this talk about the ill-fated voyage of the Titanic and a look back at the 25-year anniversary of the release of James Cameron's, should I say masterpiece? I think that's fair. Titanic. Everybody, this Valentine's Day, I want you all to know I love you. Continue to love one another. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.